Hello again, everybody. This is Joe Larson. You're watching the 505 on Racing Show. Welcome. Nice week. The weather here in Long Island has broken. It's in the 50s today, the 50s. And everything's starting to melt. There's water everywhere. It has nowhere to go because the ground is still frozen. But we're in better shape than the folks up in Boston, for what I'm understanding, and the folks up in Buffalo who are still trying to dig out. But the weather here is good. And I'm glad it's good because, racing is going to start happening here in the Northeast. In fact, the Whelen Southern Modified Tour opens up at Caraway on the 28th, I believe, or the 14th. I'm trying to remember when the 14th. That's next weekend. So it's starting. It's starting. And speaking of racing, the Sprint Cup Series and the Xfinity Series was at Las Vegas Motor Speedway this past weekend, with Austin Dillon taking down the win in the Xfinity Series, followed by Ryan Blaney in second. Reagan Smith was third. Denny Hamlin fourth. Chase Elliott with a top five. Brendan Gaughan sixth. Darrell Wallace Jr., respectable seventh. Ty Dillon eighth. Brendan Poole ninth. And Daniel Suarez rounding out the top 10. They'll be in Phoenix next weekend. And that's a schedule. Years ago, the teams didn't go back and forth to their shops when they traveled, and they did the run. They went up the coast and out to the west, and then they raced their way back. And this back and forth to the west, man, that's got to wreak havoc with these hauler drivers and teams. But it's the schedule, and everybody is on the same playing field with that. It's just, I think it's crazy. By the time they get back, it's time to load up and head back west to Phoenix, where they'll be. As the Cup Series was also in Vegas, and they'll be in Phoenix next week. Kevin Harvick got the win in Vegas with Martin Truex Jr. second, Ryan Newman third, Dale Earnhardt Jr. was fourth, followed by Denny Hamlin in fifth, A.J. Allmendinger sixth, Brad Keselowski was seventh, Kyle Larson eighth, Matt Kenseth ninth, and rounding out the top 10, Joey Logano. The Campbell World Truck Series was off this past weekend. Their next race will be Martinsville, and that'll be March 28th. So that always a good show in Martinsville. I love watching the trucks in Martinsville. There's some beating and banging, some good hard door handle, hub-to-hub racing with the truck series at Martinsville. It's typical short track racing at its best. Martinsville, one of my favorite racetracks. I've had gone to Martinsville many times over the years, and always looked forward to it. But work schedules and all kinds of other things now don't allow me to do that. So it is what it is, whatever. But finally we got some good stuff going. But that's what's going on there. Cup Series. Yeah, some Cup news. What are we going to talk about? Four-time Sprint Cup Series champion Jeff Gordon had made plans this week to meet with NASCAR regarding safer barriers and other things that may come up, as Jeff Gordon put it. Jeff is going to be meeting with the Vice President and Chief Racing Development Officer Steve O'Donnell. Gordon announced his plans to meet with O'Donnell at Las Vegas. And I know he's upset about the safer barriers only being in corners. I know he's upset about where cars are hitting and they're just missing the barrier. And I'm sure he wants to talk about putting safety barriers all the way around the racetrack. And I don't object to that. I think it's a good thing. I think some of the hard hits that some of the people are taking, are tearing up, not only tearing up race cars, but tearing up race car drivers. And I know years ago, sometimes it was just a post and a guardrail, which kept the race cars from careening out of the racetrack. Although you look at some old footage, I remember Lee Petty, not that I remember it, I'm not that old, but I remember Lee Petty seeing pictures of that car in Daytona going over the guardrail at turn 3 and dropping the 3 stories down, because that's the distance from the top of the wall at Daytona to the ground outside the racetrack. It's 3 stories high. So you imagine going in your car and 150, 160, 170 miles an hour, going airborne and then dropping 3 stories. He was not himself for quite some time after that. And I think that big crash, I think that was the one that put him into retirement, at least got him out of racing full time. But these are some of the things, and I know at some of the racetracks, the safer barrier is going to take away from the racing surface, where they're already touching the wall. going down the straightaways and coming off the corners. And I know that's going to be an issue. But what's going to have to happen is, everybody's going to be on that same racetrack, and they're going to have to adjust the way they race. So let's hope that all goes good. And speaking of Vegas, post-race inspection after Vegas, the 51 car driven by Justin Allgaier was light on the scales at post-race inspection. A weight, however, was found on the track, and NASCAR confiscated the weight, and NASCAR is going to try to determine if it fell off Allgaier's car. Allgaier's car was taken back to Concord, North Carolina, along with Kevin Harvick's winning entry. Now, people can say, well, they're going to know if it's his weight. As per the rules, all bolted-on weight, needs to be bolted on with 2 bolts, and has to be marked with that car number. So they'll be able to tell if it was his weight or not. And whether or not there's going to be a penalty assessed for this remains to be seen, because those decisions are made on Tuesdays. However, it also says in the rules that the weight needs to be secured properly and for it to fall off unless there was an accident or an incident of some kind that would cause it to come off. I still think there's going to be some kind of issue with that weight and coming up light on the scales. It's just one of those things, and I know that was one of the things when I was going through tech, pre-practice tech, it was checking the weights that are bolted to the car, making sure they had the 2 bolts in them, even if it was a small little weight, and also making sure that the weight was at least in the modifieds painted white and had identifying markings on it. So, and that's for a reason. That's it's funny, you're rolling underneath a race car, and who borrowed a weight from this guy and that guy, and then it doesn't have the right car number on it. And I would make them change it, even if they just did it with a Sharpie. It was one of those things. So I don't know. It's all good. It's all good. I just hope the penalty is not severe. It's probably one of the lower level penalties that will be assessed. But again, like I said, penalties are assessed on Tuesday when they have their meeting to discuss some of the things that go on, not only in the top 3 series, but also in the touring series when they get going as well. And also in the weekly series. I know I would call Jerry Cook or Joe Scott Nicky when they were the competition directors, when I had incidences at my racetracks. And the decision would be mailed out or shipped out overnight to the driver on Tuesday. They usually get it Wednesday, so that the competitor knew, they can make some plans. So it's, you look back on that. I can remember sitting there talking to Jerry Cook, and I'd still be upset or hot over an incident at the racetrack, or no matter what it was that required me to call NASCAR to assess a penalty. And, normally you'd have a small fine at a weekly racing series track, or a week off. And the promoters and racetrack operators, they don't want to suspend drivers. And not because they don't want to hurt the driver's feelings, but when that driver doesn't come, the residual effects now. That driver's not there, his car owner's not there, his crew's not there, and all these are your paying customers, so to speak. And then the people who come in the grandstands watch. So, one driver said to me one time when he got a suspension notice, he called me up and he goes, I'm going to call the track owners, and I'm going to let them know that 20 people aren't coming to the track at $30 or $25 a piece. I'm going to let them know that. I said, okay, and of course he did that, and of course the track operators wanted to know what the deal was, because I up until then I kind of had carte blanche as long as I spoke to Jerry Cook, and all of a sudden a couple of people got suspended, and rightfully so, and some I only wanted to give a week, and sometimes NASCAR bumped it up to 2, and some I only wanted to give a fine, and NASCAR bumped it up to a fine and weeks off, but that's just how it was back then, and I can tell you a little story. One of the car owners came in, his driver got a little out of control, and I knew it was one of those situations where I had to wait till Monday to call Jerry Cook anyway, and I knew that if I made the decision Saturday night, it was going to be not a good decision, and not a decision that was made with sound business sense. It was going to be a decision based on raw emotion, and you can't do that. And that took me a long time to learn. But the car owner kept coming to my office. He goes, I need to know. And I said, why do you need to know today for? Is today going to be any different than, like on Monday? Well, I need to know if tomorrow I got to work on my car, go fix it. If we're going to be suspended, there's no sense fixing it right away. And I got time, if I don't have the money, and all that kind of good stuff. So, and he kept coming in, I said, look, you need to know right now. As of right now, it's a $10,000 fine and a 10-year suspension. And he said, well, that's ridiculous. Well, I said, well, maybe NASCAR will talk me down, because right now, because you keep coming and bothering me, that's what it is. Well, they knew they weren't going to get a 10-year suspension. They knew that was going to happen. And if anything, they were going to get a week, maybe. And but lo and behold, man, they showed up with a check like within 20 minutes. Somebody was going to pay their fine. So I was like, and that was the other thing. I in talking to the powers that be at NASCAR back, and I'm talking back, back in like 2000, 1999, 2001. One of the things, and I had said to Jerry Cook at the time, I said, fining these guys in the weekly series, it's not going to bother them. That's not going to hurt them, because here's race teams that are bolting on $600 worth of tires for $200 to win. It's not about the money. And I pointed out there was a provision in the rule book that you could penalize points in the weekly series. And I was told it's never been done. Okay, so it's never been done, so I'll be the first guy. And that was one of my arguments and pet peeves with the penalty process, because the weekly guys, they don't care. They're going to sponsor to pay it, and some of these guys have, unlimited supplies of cash for whatever businesses that they're in that could do that. I wish, but the money didn't bother them. Sitting out bothered. The late Kenny Hyde and I, we got suspended once 2 weeks. It wasn't the $200 fine. It was here we were, me and Kenny Hyde, sitting in the grandstand with our kids, being driven crazy, while our wives are in the pits having a good time. We couldn't go in the pits. So it's one of those things. But when you look at these penalties, like I said, NASCAR meets on Tuesday mornings, and they all sit in the conference room, and all the big wigs are in there, and they talk about what happened, what could have happened, what should have happened, what didn't happen, and they decide what penalties are going to be assessed, if any. And if anybody brought something to their attention that a penalty is warranted, they will then discuss that penalty, and it's written up and overnighted, like I said, so that the competitor has it. Every once in a while, one shows up on Friday, and I really do think that the ones that show up on Friday are, it's because it's a payback, and sometimes it's deservedly, deservedly a payback. But I know of a crew that was a touring team that were already on their way to the racetrack to go racing. And they got a phone call from him, you just got suspended. And I'm like, what? Yeah, you just got suspended. And the guy's on his way, to the race. And I'm not talking driving 20 miles. He was driving like 20 hours. So when he got there, he was told he wasn't welcome in the garage area. And I'm sure that was just add a little fuel to the fire. But you know what? Sometimes you have to do those things. And I'm not saying I agree with that. And I don't. But it happens, and I went through that with a team, and we'll wrap this up real quick before we take a break. And I was involved with inspecting cars, and 3 races in a row I let this thing go, and it wasn't a big thing. It was a hole in the firewall that I wanted covered up. So I find it on week 1 and look covered up with some kind of no mixing. Whether you take a glove and stuff it and tape it in there real good, a fire retardant glove or an old piece of fire suit, something that the fire is going to, not go through and become a blowtorch into the driver. Week 2, it was still kind of like not good. Week 3, boom. And I said to this team, I said, listen, don't show up at the next event with this not right. It's got to be covered up with firewall type steel. And I'm telling you, if you show up in the next event, I'm not going to let you go on the racetrack. And the guy kind of nodded, I got a lot of things. You're going to have to do that. Well, they show up at Mansfield, Ohio for a NASCAR modified tour race. And there it is. Not only is the Nomex glove and duct tape gone, the hole's there again. And you could tell it was clean because, you put duct tape on something that gets hot because the engine compartment's right there, and you peel it off, there's going to be a residual effect of the duct tape. And there it was, the hole, all cleaned up. So I said, you need to fix it. He goes, well, I don't have anything to fix it with. I said, then you need to load it up and go home. And I gotta admit, Chad Little, who was the series director at the time, he backed me up on that one. And in fact, they tried to go on a racetrack anyway, and Chad stopped him. It was interesting. But anyway, I'm not going to say who it was, who the driver was. The driver really had nothing to do with it. It was the crew chief, and it doesn't matter who that was. It was just a little story to share. Anyway, when we come back, I'm going to talk about an issue we've been talking about a little bit each and every week, and that's the Kurt Busch situation. And I'm sure everybody knows what's going on with that, but when we come back, we're going to talk about that. Kurt Busch. We're going to take a break. We'll be back.
Hey, this is Chris Jake, and if InRavio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, InRavio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is InRavio.com.
Hey, I'm Raul Panther.
And I'm Commander B. Hawkins.
And I'm Russ Weller. We're some of the proto men. If we see you without this bracelet, you're punching the But if you have this bracelet from InRavio.com, you can win $100.
Put one of these on, or else.
For over 60 years, Hanson Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hanson Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades, and our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit HansonCarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hanson Carpet has got you covered.
Welcome back. Kurt Busch. I've been saying for weeks, since this came about, this alleged charge that was thrown at him and hit with, the subsequent indefinite suspension from NASCAR, and I said that, he hasn't even been charged with a crime yet. Not only was he not convicted of a crime, he wasn't even charged with a crime. And I know there's a lot of stuff going on in the National Football League with a lot of stuff, a lot of domestic violence stuff. In the NBA, some domestic violence stuff, some of which was on camera, was on surveillance cameras in elevators and hotel lobbies. And it's just not right. But here we got Kurt Busch, and I said this last week. Here's a woman who, this isn't alleged, she showed up at his place of business and she walked into his weekend home when he's racing. And whatever happens, that in his workplace, in his weekend home, she had no business being there. What charges are going to be filed against her for what I would consider criminal trespass, aggravated harassment, things of that nature? Nothing. But, you know, NASCAR, and I think, and this is one of the times I have to disagree with what NASCAR did. It should have been that he's on probation pending an investigation, or he's on probation pending charges filed, or he's on probation pending a conviction, at which time we'll go in a different route. He had to sign an agreement with NASCAR. Right after the indefinite suspension, within a day or two, he signed this agreement with NASCAR. And I don't know what it says, and I'm sure that's between NASCAR, Kurt Busch, and his owners and attorneys. But, you know, as the Delaware News Journal says, Kurt Busch cleared of criminal charges. And I quote, "It was determined that the admissible evidence available, witnesses would likely be insufficient to meet the burden of establishing beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Busch committed a crime during the September 26th incident at Dover, Delaware. The Department of Justice will not pursue criminal charges in this case." Cleared. So what does that mean? What does that mean now? The man has already missed 2 events. And Chevrolet, when this was indefinite suspension was announced, cut ties with him. They cut ties with him. The question remains, and Gene Haas, co-owner of Stewart Haas Racing, is concerned about Kurt Busch's chase eligibility. Because right now, co-owner Gene Haas was quoted as saying that chase eligibility is a factor in whether or not Kurt Busch, his indefinite suspension by NASCAR, would be allowed to return to the 41 car. If his chase eligibility is out the window, Stewart Haas Racing is not going to put him back in the car because they're in there to win a championship, or at least have a fair shot at winning a championship. Now, in the past, NASCAR has granted exemptions, as it did for Denny Hamlin and Brian Vickers, due to medical issues. Now, here's a situation where, and I'm going to say this again, and I'm not saying this in a bad thing. I think it was a knee-jerk reaction. I know they had to do something. They had to take a stand on this, but the man was not charged, and he was not found guilty of any charges. It was all dismissed, dropped. NASCAR suspended him indefinitely. So NASCAR now, in my opinion, I'm thinking maybe NASCAR is going to make an exemption for Kurt Busch to be still eligible for the chase. Whether or not now Kurt Busch could drive his way into it at this point, or at least be close to it, it remains to be seen. But NASCAR needs to take a look at that. They took away his opportunity to do business. He lost sponsor. He lost a primary sponsor. How do you drive a Chevrolet race car and Chevy cut ties with you? Now what do? Do you go to Ford and say, "Oh, I'm going to race a Ford now," or do you go to Toyota, or what do you do? What do you do? This is it's gonna get a little sticky, and I'm sure the powers that be are sitting there, trying to figure out how to handle this in a way that is fair to NASCAR, fair to Kurt Busch, fair to the fans, fair to his sponsors. I'm sure some announcements going to be. I saw nothing on the NASCAR website and on the NASCAR news in regards to this, and I'm sure NASCAR is going to have some kind of statement this week, because he was wronged. The man was wronged, and I'm going to say this again. That girlfriend, fiance, whatever she was to him, it was over. She showed up at his place of business. She went into his motorhome. Okay? And what happened behind those closed doors, nobody really knows. That's why there's no evidence. That's why there's no witnesses. Did she have a bump somewhere? Maybe. Did he? I don't know. But the bottom line is he has a right to earn a living, and he has a right to earn that living based on facts, not hearsay. And in my opinion, you know, in Delaware, those people did all of that stuff with the charges, the district attorney and the judges, for publicity. Hey, we're in the paper. We're in the paper. Look at this. We don't take that stuff here in our state, in our county. We don't do that. And you know what? I don't know. Nobody knows. But, you know, NASCAR has been known to make provisions, and I hope they do that in this case. And if they don't, you know, here's something that somebody brought to my attention just the other day. We were talking about this. Nobody knows what's in that agreement that Kurt Busch had to sign in order for him to come back into NASCAR. Has he had some temper issues in the past? Yeah, he has. Has he done some things that might not be at this level? Because he's in the top level of the race, and when you know, when you're in the Sprint Cup Series, or when you're in the NFL, or if you're in the NHL, or you're a Major League Baseball player, your standards are higher than John Q. Public. Those are the things that, you know, I guess we all have to look at in regards to this. But, you know, the bottom line is no charges were filed. None. Done. Case dismissed. They can't bring this up again. There's a law, double jeopardy. You can't be charged twice for the same thing. Unless, of course, new evidence comes to play, but you just can't. Just can't do that. And yes, so if he can win a race, he definitely can, you know, get in by winning a race. But part of the ruling, and correct me if I'm wrong, somebody out there in the old chat room, you have to, how does it go? You have to make a bona fide attempt to run every single event. You didn't run every single event. Something to think about. But I'm glad he was cleared. You know, I'm not a Kurt Busch fan, so to speak. I'm not really, I don't know, you guys can think I'm not really a fan of any one particular driver or another. I always root for who's ever in a Richard Petty car. Richard Petty was my childhood idol growing up. You know, you got to understand, when I first started getting into racing, I went to my first race, I was, what was I, 6 or 7? I think I was 7 years old. It was the old Freeport Municipal Stadium. And I remember it like it was, you know, yesterday, my first time there. And I thought it was loud, and it was dusty and dirty, and I had trouble seeing the cars. We sat in, why do I remember this? We sat in turn 1, and I couldn't see what was going on. A little quarter-mile race, I couldn't see what was going on in turn 3. But, you know, I was a little guy, and I remember people sitting in front of me, they were bigger than me. I couldn't see over their heads. But I was hooked that day. And then, you know, a couple of, you know, Wide World of Sports had some of the races on, and Richard Petty was winning every other week, and Richard Petty was my man. And now whoever's in that 43 car, that's who I, you know, kind of root for. I'm not rooting for the driver, I'm rooting for Richard Petty Motorsports. I'm a big Richard Petty fan. And most of my, I'd have to say 90% of my collectibles, NASCAR collectible stuff, is Richard Petty items. But anyway, Kurt Busch. I hope this all works out for him. I hope that whatever agreement he signed, the agreement said if he was cleared of all charges, be reinstated. I hope Gene Haas and Tony Stewart, the co-owners of Stewart Hart Racing, can sit down and get him back into a car, and because it's the right thing to do. The right thing to do. Unless there's something in that agreement that you, me, and the hole in the wall don't know about. That's all I can say about this. Let's just move forward, because that's what you need to do sometimes. You need to move forward. Can't be looking back. We're going to take a break. We come back, we'll talk about some of the NASCAR wheel and modified stuff that's going on, and whatever else I feel like talking about when we come back.
guys. We're Scare No Fear, and we're here with Enravio. If they catch you at a show with one of these bracelets, you will win $100.
That's a lot of money.
So get a bracelet.
Do whatever it takes to get that. Hit them up online.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Enravio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Enravio.com. Enravio.com wants you. Enravio provides the best in TV, film, post-production, and so much more. And we're growing. Right now, we're looking for a team of pros that can join us. So what are you waiting for? We need show hosts, production crew, marketing gurus, sales experts, audio engineers, lighting, visual effects, and camera crews. We want you. Go to Enravio.com/join the team.
Hey, I'm Raul Panther.
And I'm Commander B. Hawkins.
And I'm Russ Willie. We're some of the proto men. If we see you without this bracelet, you get punched in the But if you have this bracelet from Enravio.com, you can win $100.
Put one of these on, or else.
For over 60 years, Hanson Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hanson Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades, and our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit HansonCarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hanson Carpet has got you covered.
We're back. We are back. Anyway, I was thinking on the way out here, I'll tell you, you guys are killing me. My car started overheating like halfway here, so I'm like, do I turn around and head back, or do I roll the dice? So I rolled the dice. Hopefully, we don't have any issues going home. I'll fill it up, make it happen. I don't know what's going on, but Kevin, have a good one. Kevin Basic, Long Island Need for Speed. Yeah, WJ, you ain't kidding. You have no idea. But anyway, oh yes. Anyway, a lot of stuff going on, but you know the modified. I was looking at the registered drivers in the modified tour, the Wheeler Modified Tour, and just to see who's signed up with all kind of, and not that they registered for races yet, but they've submitted their owner's license or whatever. There's only 24 teams with registered numbers in the NASCAR Wheeling Modified Tour as of when I looked at NASCARHometracks.com this afternoon. And a couple of them have the wrong names on them. Like I know Glenn Reed will not be driving for Mark Seifert. It'll be Donnie Leaf, so that change wasn't made. But I really expected to see more on that. And I got a leak, WJ, and I can't find it. I had a hose pop the other day, and I fixed it, but I still have a leak. And I was just going to talk about that, my 200 show. The weather this past winter, the snow and that, it kind of messed that up a little bit. It was supposed to be the Monday after Daytona. And then we had some snow events and whatnot. So I believe we're going to do it the last Monday of March. Will be the 200th anniversary show. Because I have to take a state certification test, and it's going to make it so I can't do a show in between. I'm not sure if it's next Monday, the Monday after. I'm not sure if it's the 17th or the 24th, or the 24th to be the show. I'll firm that up. I'll put it on the site. But we're gonna do a nice 200th anniversary show. 200 shows, man. Man. I was only gonna do this for a little while until Chuck got sick of me, you know. You know, we started Henry Boston. It was his show, man. I just came along, and then Henry and I had some good times doing this show together. And then Henry went on to other things. I miss him. It was. Again, it was nice to bounce things off of a person, but we're going to take a look at that in the summer months, bringing in a co-host. I guess I just said that. Now everybody here in radio knows that I'm looking to have a co-host. Actually, I've been looking to have a co-host, and so I don't know. It's just easier to talk to somebody than to talk to, like, you know, a camera with a little red light. But anyway, I'm loving it. But the 200 show, I want to put the 200 show out there in such a way that we get the old and the new here in the studio. We're probably going to do it in Studio A. It has like a living room setting and chairs and stuff. And, you know, as always, Marty Himes will represent the old. And I'd like to find a driver, a rookie driver, a new driver to come in and talk about what his hopes and dreams are moving forward, and then, you know, and from the older end, you know, we could talk about what that's like to live it, you know. So, but we're going to work that all out. In fact, I'm going to try to work that out, firm that up this week, and post it on my page so that everybody knows what's going on with that. I enjoy doing that show. And I remember when we did the 50th show, it wasn't such a big deal. I remember what then I did the 100th show and had a little gathering for it. And then we did the 150th show. And we had a situation, and we ended up doing it the week after. And Roger Oxy drove all the way down here, a late model driver from Long Island, races on Long Island from upstate New York, drove down here to be a part of that. And that's something I'll never forget that. And you know, WJ, I'm glad you said that. That would be awesome. Because, you know, a young kid who's coming in, and you know, I'm going to go through the list of people who have been guests live in the studio on that show. I'm going to go on people who called in. One of my first interviews live on the phone was with Burt Myers, multi-champion NASCAR wheel and Southern Modified Tour. Burt Myers, and share a little story with you on that. When I asked Burt to be on the show, he goes, I got to ask my daddy. I went, all right, you know, he's a Southern gentleman. He listens to what his dad tells him. And I said, all right, let's touch base, you know, Monday afternoon. We'll talk about what we're going to talk about. So he calls me up. He goes, okay, you know, Daddy said, we got stuff to do in the shop, so I only can give you 15 minutes. Now, remember, the show was 2 hours then. I'm like, oh, what am I going to talk about 15 minutes? That's going to go by in a blink. I said, all right, you know, Bert, I appreciate you calling in from North Carolina. So, yeah, let's do it. And I said, you know what? I said, Bert, I do a little thing for the first, you know, 15, 20 minutes. We're going to take a break, and then we'll you know, get you on the phone. So here he is. He's on the phone. And I'm trying to throw all my stuff at him real quick because he's got to go. He's got to work on his car. And all of a sudden, we're going to take a break, and he's still talking. And he's still talking. And we take a break. We come back. He's still talking. And the next event that I saw him at, I said, you know, of course I thanked him on the show, but when I saw him, I said, Bert, I said, that was the longest 15 minutes I ever had. And he said to me, he goes, you know what? We were going, it was going well, and Daddy kept looking at me. He kept saying, keep going, keep going, keep going. And so I thanked him, and his, you know, as far as, well, we really didn't know what to expect. And it was like really good. So one of my first calling guests, Jesse Little, K&M Pro Series standout, was also a call-in guest from North Carolina. So we've had some good people here, and we've had some good fun. We've had some people in the studio here, champion race car drivers, future champion race car drivers. Kenny High Jr., when he came here, we talked about that. winning a championship. It was good, but there's just so many people that, it's just tough for these drivers and teams to get down to the studio. We had scheduled in the next couple of weeks Checker One Motorsports with Artie Peterson Jr. and his boys are scheduled to come down. And between weather and they had a situation in their family that we were going to have to do that, and probably after the 200th anniversary, but we're looking forward to doing that. Mark Seifer and Donnie Lear are scheduled to come. They've committed, or at least Mark Seifer has committed to come and talk about what it's like to be a car owner on a NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour, feat he's done for many years, primarily with Glenn Tyler, and then most recently with Glenn Reen. Not too much success, but you know what? He's there. He was there every week, and that's all that matters. So we're looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to it. And before I forget, I didn't see him on tonight because, and when I say I didn't see him on, figure 8 22, Bill Batch. He's probably out with his family celebrating his 49th birthday. So a happy birthday to Bill Batch. I couldn't believe he was 49, 49, next year's the big 5-0 for 22 figure 8. And always enjoyed racing. Well, I shouldn't say we always enjoyed it. There were some days he didn't enjoy racing with me, but I enjoyed racing with him. But, you look back and you laugh at those things. You laugh. But anyway. So like I said earlier, the Whelen Southern Modified Tour is going to open up next weekend at Caraway. I like that place. I really do. A lot of people don't, but I like that place. And maybe because they treat me good there, I don't know. I got to have a nice position, I guess we can call it, with the North-South Shooter once, and did some tour races there. And I met some nice people there at Caraway, and developed, believe it or not, developed a couple of friendships that even though I only saw them at Caraway Speedway, thanks to social media and email and whatnot, you keep touch with these people. And that's what racing does. It builds friendships. There are people that I've met through racing that I probably would have never even run across, nor would I have even decided to be in a relationship with, whether it's a guy thing or a woman thing. And when I say a relationship, I don't mean married and all that kind. I mean a friendship relationship, a friendly relationship. Because racers are good people. They're good people, and I know my dad, when he was passing away, he looked at me and he said, "I think I missed the boat on this racing thing," because he didn't realize how tight knit this bunch of racing people are, and I wish that he would have seen. And I know my mom saw it when my dad passed away. I don't think there was a single race team that didn't come to the services, and Roger Oxley came all the way from upstate New York, and these are the things you don't forget, These are the things you don't forget. But anyway, I don't want to make this about that kind of crap. But race people, they've as bad as some of them have been to me, most of them have been pretty good to me over the years. So and I appreciate that. But anyway, some modified news. Long Island's Kyle Elwood, a 2013 Legend champion on Long Island, and who followed the following year into a tour-type modifieds at his local track on Long Island. And he had 2 feature wins and finished 5th in the points. We'll be traveling to do some NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour racing. As reported in Newsday, Elwood will race on the Whelen Modified Tour and his local racetrack at the same time. So I'm sure that there'll be some races that Kyle will be at on the tour that do not conflict with his local racetrack. Be interested to see how that pans out. I wish him only the best. It's funny the influx of Long Islanders that have come to the Whelen Modified Tour. When I first started working on the tour, it was part-time select events. I wasn't officially on the payroll, so to speak, but I was still running a local racetrack here on Long Island. And I can remember there was only from Long Island at the time Tommy Baldwin, the late great Tommy Baldwin, and every once in a while J.R. Bertuccio. And the Long Island contingent was called the Wrong Island Gang. And all of a sudden, a couple more guys showed, and a couple more guys, and this guy and that guy. and from the Long Island. And I'm sure I'll forget some, but Glenn Tyler showed up, Ken Hagee, Kevin Goodale, when he had a run-in with his local racetrack and decided to skip a week and come racing with us and never left. Eric Goodale now. Man, there's just so many, and I know I'm going to leave. I know I'm leaving people out. Donnie Leah. When you look at the modified tour, Justin Bonsignor, when you look at the modified tour now, the influx of Long Islanders is so much bigger than it was years ago. And part of that was because the guys that coming up from Long Island had like this negative connotation from the people that were running the series behind the scenes, not from Ed Cox. Ed Cox was a Southern gentleman, and it was always good to me. I learned a lot from Ed Cox. But there was a certain individual official and his family who just didn't like the Long Island bunch. And part of that was he was an official at ISO Speedway, and he didn't get treated very well, I guess. But he took it personal. And this is just in my opinion. And what he didn't realize is that's how they are, the owners and operators, I guess, of ISO Speedway now, the Long Island contingent. But that's just how it was then. But Kyle Atwood, I wish him well. Also on the Wheel of Modified Tour, some news. Ron Uhas Jr. will not be behind the wheel of the KLM Motorsports NASCAR Wheel and Modified team in 2015. Former MRS winner Anthony Nocella will pilot the car in 2015. Uhas plans to return in 2016 if all goes well. In my opinion, Ron Uhas, he was injured in New Hampshire Motor Speedway back in September. And for undisclosed injuries, and I think it was a back injury. So I think it's smart of him to sit a year out, regroup, and heal a little bit better because Ron Uhas, great guy. I enjoyed talking to him. I love his sense of humor. He was one of the guys I would sit and talk to about the business end of racing. The guy's an accountant by trade. And him and I would talk about the business of racing from time to time. But I wish Ron well. I'm looking forward to his return in 2016. We're going to take a break, and we come back. We're going to start to wrap up and figure out what we're going to do in the next couple of weeks here at the 505 on show when we come back.
For over 60 years, Hanson Carpet has put the customer first, providing only the finest quality products and service. And Hanson Carpet is so much more than just carpet. We also carry a wide selection of window blinds and shades, and our licensed and insured technicians can service any of your flooring or window covering needs. Browse our huge selection of laminate, carpet, linoleum, vinyl, and tile. Stop by our showroom today or visit HansonCarpet.com. No matter what your project, Hanson Carpet has got you covered. The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, InRavio can get your message out there. And we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is InRavio.com.
Hey, this is Chris Les Jake, and if InRavio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
guys, we're Scare No Fear, and we're here with Enravio. If they catch you at a show with one of these bracelets, you will win $100.
That's a lot of money.
So get a bracelet.
Do whatever it takes to get that. Hit them up online.
Enravio.com wants you. Enravio provides the best in TV, film, post-production, and so much more. And we're growing. Right now, we're looking for a team of pros that can join us. So what are you waiting for? We need show hosts, production crew, marketing gurus, sales experts, audio engineers, lighting, visual effects, and camera crews. We want you. Go to Enravio.com/join the team.
Hey, we're back. We are back. So anyway, what's going on? What's going on race-wise? You know, it's funny. I see, like I said earlier, there weren't a lot of registered numbers on the NASCAR Wheeling Modified Northern Tour listing. There was like 23 or 24 teams, and 2 of them were wrong. Not that they're wrong; they just haven't been updated. And I have a concern about that because where are all the cars? Where are all the cars? And why are the cars going to the MRS series? Man, you know, it's going to be interesting to see when we show up at the Thompson Motorsports Park with the NASCAR Wheeling Modified Tour and the MRS, Valenti Modified Racing Series, is there at the same time. Because you know who's going to have more cars in the garage area. And you know who's going to be paid the most. It's going to be the ones with the least number of cars, and the ones that are going to be paid the least are going to be the ones with the most number of cars. And why is that? Now, people are going to tell you, I don't race for the money. You're full of it. You do so. You know, otherwise, you know, yeah. Got tongue-tied there. Because you know, if at the end of the night you go to the payoff window and they handed you, like, I don't know, a dinner for 2 at the local restaurant, you wouldn't be happy with that. So you are racing for the money. And I have to ask, you know, what's going on with purses in racetracks that paid more money years ago when the cost was so much less, and now they're cutting the prices down. You know, let's see. The Tri-Track series, and that's just something that I never really talk about. Maybe I should. There's a bunch of cars signed up for that already, and but why? Why is it that a series that used to send home more cars than it started some weeks, why are they barely filling the field? You know, Ucumship, he says, I race for the 25 bucks. You know, yeah, I mean, come on. I look at the cost. You know, don't get me wrong, I'm a businessman, and I'm a marketing guy, and I know all about what it costs to run a racetrack. I was behind the scenes in not only in a weekly track, but in a touring series, and it's not cheap. It's not cheap to put on a race show. However, the track operators cannot continue to raise the pit fees, raise the NASCAR the license fees, although they didn't go up this year, but the license fees go up. The price of tires goes up. The price of fuel, you know, as the price of fuel dropped like 30%, for regular car fuel or automobile fuel, you know, you got to ask, is racing fuel? Well, no, it's a whole different kind of fuel. No, it doesn't. Because what it is there's so much of it already sitting in the tanks, racing fuel, that they're not going to sell it for $2 less a gallon because they already paid for it. So they got to recoup that money, you know. And then maybe when they fill up those reserves again, the race fuel will go down. But the prices keep going up. The price of a ticket keeps going up. The price to get in the pit area keeps going up. Licenses, for the most part, keep going up. Tires, the parts, what it costs to ship parts. This stuff keeps going up and up and up, and the prices keep dwindling. And why is that happening? Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be a businessman for a second. Let's picture me as a track operator, God forbid. Let's picture me as a track operator. I'm like, you know what? Man, I was paying $2,000 to win, and I'm $1,750, and they still came. Maybe I'll drop it to $1,500. See what happens. They still came. We dropped to $1,250. They're still coming. Wow. Who's the fool here? You know, and we'll get you this: $400 for tires, $200 for crew passes, $200 for food and soda, $200 in gas, $25 to take the green. It's priceless. I'm telling you, it's insane. It's insane. And I look back, and when my daughter was running the blunderbuss car, and it was like 105 to win, and I forget what second, third, fourth, but fifth was like $25 to 10th. Was $25, and then 11th to last was $20. It was $30 to get in, and I had this figure eight car sitting. You know, we were getting $100 to take the green. It wasn't costing me anything. I was on a tire deal. I was on a fuel deal. So, and I had somebody tow the car there for me. So here's this, you go boom, 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 do 5-6 laps, boom, go to the payoff window and get the $105 for finishing last in the figure eights. And you had to win in the blunderbuss to get that. You know, and I'll never, I never will forget, and Jay Slice could attest to this, when his brother drove the figure eight car the first night and backed into a fourth place finish, because it was a wreck fest, and I just told, and we weren't geared right, and I said, just hang out, we'll get a top 10. And I'm like, all right, just hang out, we'll get a top 5. And all of a sudden, we're on a caution with like 2 to 3 go, and Brian Cicella says, are we in fourth? I said, yep. And when we went to the payoff window, I remember I came back, and Brian says, you know, if you don't mind me asking, what did fourth pay? I said, well, fourth paid more than the blunderbuss made all year last year. All right, you know, the figure eight guys are on a good deal, you know, but like I said, the purses keep going down, and you know, you know, back in the day, it cost nothing to build a car. When I say nothing, it only cost a few $100s to build a car, and now it's thousands and thousands of dollars, and everything's aftermarket, and nothing's built or fabricated anymore. You call the local parts guy, and he gets it for you. You know, something we need to take a look at, not only as race car drivers, but race car owners, and those in the social media who write about this stuff. Man, write about this stuff. Ask those hard questions. You know, these tracks that got to start taking a look at who's putting on the show, and take care of these guys, because they're going to stop coming. They're going to, and as Mark Root said to me, race cars in the pit area equate to fannies in the seats. And if your pits are empty, your grandstands are going to be empty too. Just something to think about. I wish, you know, and don't blame NASCAR for putting on Saturday night races. Don't blame NASCAR, you know, for putting on Friday night races that might interfere with your race night. You know, people tape races, DVR races, watch them at their leisure. Even if it's a Sunday race, they tape them and DVR them. So, you know, the local tracks need to take a look at this. They need to take a look at what's wrong with their business, that they're losing cars, and it's not the economy. It's not the economy when race teams drive past their local racetrack to go race somewhere else, whether it's 10 miles or 110 miles. Why are they driving past their own local racetrack? All right? It's crazy. And like, you know, Silverback says on the tour, it's $900 for a set of tires, and it's a $175 entry fee sometimes, and then there's an inspection fee, and there's this fee, and you got to buy 40 gallons of fuel, and that's, you know, at $10 a gallon, and it's just incredible what it costs to go racing, and the purses keep dropping, and the car counts are dropping, because the guy in the back of the pack doesn't stand a chance. He's going to lose his shirt, and then it's just one of those things. So we're going to wrap it up. Okay, Cup of the Nationwide will be at Phoenix next week. Like I said earlier, Caraway for the Southern Modified Tour, and we'll be here Monday, 5:05 on Racing Show. I want to thank everybody for being a part of this, being a part of the chat, listen to me rant, your input, and all that kind of good stuff. I couldn't do it without you guys and gals out in the chat room. So anyway, we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank everybody. Tell somebody you love them, give them a hug. God bless you all, and be safe this week. We'll see you next Monday.
InRavio.com.